I Know Where You Are, a research project on geolocation and privacy by Brian, Jesse, Max, and Teresa. We are addressing how comfortable people are with sharing their geolocation data. We focused on both applications and services that track users' data, as well as geolocation data shared through social media. Currently, there has been a lot of research on the topic of how comfortable users are with sharing their personal information online. There has also been research on the expected default privacy settings on websites and the amount of privacy that users expect on the internet. There is a discrepancy between what the users expect and what companies offer. But there really hasn't been a lot of research on how users feel about sharing their geolocation information. To research this, we used two methods. First, we conducted a field study where users recorded their location and how comfortable they would be with sharing that location. We then had a follow-up interview. These are three of the most related research papers to our topic. The first one, Smartphone Dumb Regulations, Mixed Signals in Mobile Privacy, deals with the regulations concerning location tracking. It expands on how the current regulations in the United States are over 25 years old and have not been updated to deal with the modern issues raised by smartphones and GPS devices. The second article, Reasonable Expectations of Geoprivacy, also deals with the regulations regarding geoprivacy. It looks at whether the concept of a reasonable expectation of privacy is indeed a valid concept. A third article, titled Empirical Models of Privacy and Location Sharing, studied how users changed their privacy sharing preferences through the usage of an application they designed to share the user's location. Before we get into our research methods, we must first define two separate types of location sharing. First, we define private sharing as sharing the user's location with the company who designed the application. In this case, the location would be linked to an account number, but not specifically to the user's name. This information would not be publicly available for others to look up, and instead would be used by the creators of the application for data analysis. The second form of sharing we defined is public sharing. Public sharing involves all sharing that is posted to a social media website of some form. It is directly linked to the user's profile on that social media site, for instance, Facebook or Foursquare. This information is accessible by whoever can access the user's profile. With those two forms of sharing in mind, we gave 17 students a blank field study to fill out. The students were instructed to record their location every hour across Friday and Saturday. Each time they recorded their location, they were asked to record if they would be comfortable sharing that location publicly and/or privately. After the users completed the field study, we had follow-up interviews with 11 of the subjects. During these interviews, we asked them questions to get an opinion about how they felt about topics from 4 major categories. First, we tried to get a feel for how they felt about general social media sharing. Second, we asked them some questions specifically about location-based sharing. These questions dealt primarily with public sharing. After that, we moved on to some questions regarding sharing their location through a smartphone. These questions helped us gain insight into how the users felt about private sharing. They also gave us a clear view into what the users' expectations of private sharing were. Finally, we asked them some follow-up questions based off the field study. These questions helped clarify their answers from the study and helped us see how users felt using an application that they explicitly knew was tracking their location. Based on our findings, we found that all of our research candidates use Facebook to some degree. Some used other social media sites with location sharing capabilities, but they were much less popular. From our sample group, 75% of users say that they examine the privacy settings on a website when they first join it. The remainder said that they would examine the privacy settings when it was brought to their attention, either through friends or the media. Although they all inspected the settings, not everyone made changes. There were some specific categories that users felt uncomfortable posting information about. They felt uncomfortable posting anything that was extremely personal, financial information, or embarrassing and inappropriate information. People also felt uncomfortable posting personal information about other people. We also found that the users were surprised that some applications were using their location data. For instance, most users did not expect that the free editions of Fruit Ninja or Angry Birds on Android phones would use their location data. After studying our results, we found that people were most willing to share their information if they understood why an application would need it. For instance, users were happy to share their location with Yelp or weather applications. The application would need their location to provide accurate results, and most users felt comfortable sharing it automatically to avoid having to enter it. On the other hand, users were generally discouraged by applications that wanted their location for advertisements. Most of the free applications used location for the advertisements. However, the location tracking was generally not enough to discourage users from using an application. They would not consider buying a paid version in order to not have location-based ads. We also found that private sharing was treated very differently from public sharing. Most people were a lot more comfortable sharing their location privately with third parties than they were with sharing their location publicly. One of the main takeaways we got from this research was that although the location-based sharing scared users, it generally was not enough to stop them from using an application. We also found that women were a lot more concerned with the privacy of their location. Many of them expressed a fear for their safety when they brought this up. Users also reported high levels of comfort with sharing their general location as opposed to sharing exactly where they were. For instance, users would be a lot more comfortable sharing that they were in class as opposed to sharing that they were in Mary Gates Hall, room 430. In the immediate future, we would hope to perform this field study on non-college students. It would be interesting to see how the expectations of privacy changed through generations who had not grown up sharing through social media. We would also like to research the various harms and benefits of geolocation data and try to determine if the pros would outweigh the cons. Another interesting continuation of this research would examine geolocation sharing that is opt-in as opposed to opt-out. In conclusion, geolocation tracking is becoming more prevalent, and people are not as informed about the matter as we think they should be. However, people had extremely varied opinions about the amount of location-based information they would be comfortable sharing. Some users would share almost everywhere they went, while other users would share almost nowhere. We also found that location was not as important as other pieces of information when it came to privacy for a majority of the users. And finally, we found that sharing their location privately was a lot more comfortable for most users than sharing it publicly.